feel like it's important to give credit where credit's due because, I mean, let's just start talking about them straight away. I was a critic. I was a skeptic. I think that is very well known public knowledge that I was a critic. I was a skeptic of Mikel Arteta, and I was kind of just really waiting to see whether or not what he would do would work, because there is a lot of kind of figuring it out with Arteta and with his system. And what I was looking at is there going to be an improvement? Because it's all good stagnating, and I feel like a lot of people thought that Arsenal would stagnate. This, in terms of their play style, would kind of just maintain what it was, and the personnel got better. That's what I was looking at. If I saw that, I would think danger signs. If I just saw the same way of playing football, just with better players, I'd be worried if I was an Arsenal supporter. So I woke up at 5 a.m. Glorious Saturday morning. Eagerly awaiting Crystal Palace versus Arsenal, and eagerly awaiting Crystal Palace to do what Brentford did last season, which unfortunately didn't come to be. But I was really, really interested to see how Arsenal played. I was very, very intrigued. Now, like I said, they obviously got in the signings of Jesus and Zinchenko. Both players started. Fabio Vieira didn't feature. Marquinhos didn't feature. All the other big signings didn't feature, unless you count Saliba. But Saliba, why not? He's a new player. He featured as well. He played the whole game and was fantastic, by the way. So I was interested to see whether or not their game style had developed. Now, it was immediate from the first minute that Arsenal were a different team this season. Well, they looked to be a different team anyway. They were quick, they were energised, they were passing in patterns, they were attacking as a unit. There was 4 or 5 or 6 players on the offence every single time they got in the final third even, or even the middle third. So it was promising signs on that perspective. And when you look at the players that played, it was kind of a all right, who's going to step up and who's going to really announce themselves? Because I feel like at the start of every season, there's a player from each team that kind of makes the game their own, in a sense. And they started with Martinelli on the left, Saka on the right, a double pivot of Xhaka and Thomas Partey, with Martin Odegaard slightly ahead, if you were to call it that, or it was a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, a similar system. Now, obviously, with Tomiyasu being unfit or being injured or not being available to play, it was Ben White starting at right fullback. Now, that in itself interests me, because we saw last year without Tomiyasu, they were lacking in that right back area. I don't think Cedric's good enough. I don't think Hector Bellerin's good enough at Premier League level anyway. So I was interested to see how Ben White would do, and how Arteta would kind of go about having Ben White as a centre-back. Now, Ben White and Tomiyasu are very similar players in terms of the way they defend, and in terms of the way that they offer that elbow-style formation, or allowing Arsenal to have an elbow-style formation with having the right back or either full-back coming inside and acting as a third centre-back, giving the licence to the left-back to really bomb on, right? So I was interested to see whether or not it'd be the same thing, and shock horror, it was, so I wasn't overly surprised there. And I was interested to see how Zinchenko would go, because I thought he would start in midfield. Personally, I thought they would go for a Partey, Zinchenko double pivot. They didn't. They went with Granit Xhaka, and it worked out. I don't think any Arsenal fans can critique that selection by any means. Zinchenko obviously played on the left-hand side and played very well, but let's get into the proper analysis by bringing up the average positions. So, as we can see here, it is very typical of a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 type system. Now, what springs to mind straight away is the way Arsenal have set up here with the 2 centre-backs, the 2 full-backs, and the 4 up front type system is very similar to the way Spain set up. And obviously we know Mikel Arteta came through La Masia and is heavily involved and heavily intricized, is that even a word, or heavily linked with the Spanish system, and especially under what Luis Enrique is doing with the national team. And the way Spain play is almost like that, is kind of a more fulfilled version of this. So for Spain, set up in a 4-3-3, but transition to a 2-4-4 in offense, right? And you can see a little bit of that here with obviously Saliba and Gabriel playing as those 2 centre-halves, with Ben White and Zinchenko being in line with a double pivot. That is a big feature of it. Now, what this offers, if we just bring it up, I feel like it's easier to illustrate here. What this offers is almost an offensive bank of four. So it's allowing you to play a two banks of four, but in a much more offensive and much more direct way. Having these players in more advanced positions as well, you obviously want Zinchenko in more advanced positions because of the attacking and offensive qualities that he possesses. But it also gives freedom to the likes of the front four because they know they've got more security just behind them. Whereas if it was a traditional, maybe it was a 4-4-2, but it went to a 4-2-4, the front four would have to be more conservative with the way that they press or conservative with the way that they hold possession because they know if they turn the ball over, they've only got two men in midfield that have to deal with maybe 3 or 4 opposition midfielders. Because you have that 4-4 in offense in like the front line and the middle third, you have the two banks of 4 there. That allows for more solidity going forward and allows for more freedom going forward. Now, the star of the show, we all know Gabriel Jesus, his quality, and we all know that what he was able to produce on Saturday morning for us, but on the first game week. And he was very exciting. I don't think there's any doubts. But there was something left to be desired, in my opinion, and he was a little bit restricted. Now, if you bring up the average positions here, you can quite clearly see that he's playing as a number 9, right? So, with that, there's certain limitations and certain mitigating factors to being a number 9. Firstly, you have to stay there. There isn't a lot of freedom, especially in a system that doesn't implement a false 9. There's not a lot of freedom when you play as an out-and-out striker. And what Gabriel Jesus' biggest strength, in my opinion, is his creative flair. He's just so creative with the ball, and I know we saw glimpses of that, especially early on when he got onto the ball. I think it was within the first couple of minutes. Drove to the defense, cut inside one, got past another, and I think he got a shot off, which was saved in the end. But there was that creativity there, but that was coming off the right hand side, and that is where I want to see Jesus more. Where's Bukayo Saka is. That's why I would love to see Jesus because I feel like they could get so much more out of him. I know I spoke about this pre-season, but having him being able to cut inside from the right or even from the left and just be that flair player, that mercurial talent, I feel like they could get more out of him. But as we can see, he started as a number 9 and he obviously played really well. So I can't even begin to question that. I'm only throwing up suggestions. He was subbed off for Eddie Nketiah late on. I'm assuming that was for either legs purposes or just to see how it could work with Nketiah up front because I feel like Arteta wants to trial Nketiah up front as like a starting number 9 and really giving him that mantle. So it'll be interesting to see where that develops. But one of the key players for Arsenal, in my opinion, was, I'll touch on William Saliba a little bit later, but Martin Odegaard. Now, Martin Odegaard for me is kind of the glue that holds this together. Of course, we all know he was given the captaincy a couple of weeks ago. I think it might have been even last week, but I think I haven't spoken about this on the podcast, but I'm a little bit hesitant to give that decision praise just because of the nature of it. I feel like there were better choices, but he's given it, and his first performance as captain was exceptional. Now, if we just speak to camera there, we'll bring up the average positions a little bit later when regards to Odegaard, but what he offered, being that right hand side kind of offensive link between the midfield third and the offensive and the attacking third, is that he was able to just be free in that position while also not having a lot of. He was able to be free in that position whilst also being very involved in the play. One of the risks you take when giving a player free license and giving a player free roam. I saw this with Chelsea a little bit when they gave, obviously, Eden Hazard, right? He was, at some points in some games, he was given license to roam. He would play up front, but he could really go anywhere. Hazard was a good enough player to pull that off 9 times out of 10. However, that one game where he wasn't able to play well, he was absent. He was really absent because you have no structure to your game then. When Odegaard is given this, he was given this freedom, which I found on against Crystal Palace. I'm just going to say Saturday morning because that's what it was for me. On Saturday morning, he was given that freedom on that right-hand side to really kind of roam wherever he wants. He was able to drop in, collect the ball from deep and dictate tempo as well as pushing up, being like a second striker almost. And he was able to be good enough to really make an impact and really pronounce himself. He wasn't overly impactful. I don't think he scored or got an assist, but he was able to just be really influential in the areas where he was, if that makes sense. So where he was, every time he was around the ball, something happened. So that is a massive tick for me, because that shows that he doesn't need to be spoon-fed a role or spoon-fed a position in order to play well. He's able to be given a license to play and license to roam, and able to take that with both hands and really drive and play well, which shows maturity and also shows class in a player. Because, like I said, Eden Hazard was able to do that 9 times out of 10. The one game he wasn't able to do that, it was completely anonymous. Odegaard has shown that he's able to do that. Well, he definitely showed that on Saturday morning, that he was able to play that free roaming role really well. So that was another plus. And I just want to touch on, that's an average position from, I don't even know where that where the average position's from, or that heat map. That's nothing related to do with the podcast. I apologize. But this average positions, this doesn't really matter when I speak about William Saliba, but he was so good on Saturday morning. He was so good, because, like, I spoke about this preseason, he was my player to watch out, or like breakout player for Arsenal this season, and I think we all saw his class. I think he starts over Ben White, in my opinion. I think that's the partnership that they go for in the future, which is a shame, because Ben White obviously has a lot of quality and really had a good battle with Wilfried Zaha on that wing, which was exciting to see every time Zaha got the ball. And I think Ben White held his own as well, just quietly. But I just think the Saliba-Gabriel partnership, both players can really grow into their own respective roles, can really grow as players beside each other, and they both offer fantastic qualities that complement each other. So I was really, really pleased to see Saliba play really, really well, because we all know the quality. He was really good in France last season, and he's a very good chance of being in that World Cup squad come November. So I was overly pleased by his performance. I thought he was the best centre-back on the day, although Anderson gave him a run for his money, because he was phenomenal for Crystal Palace. Joachim Anderson was really, really good. So it was between them two as the best centre-backs on the day, but Saliba put out every fire that was placed in front of him, and really just showed his class. Really just showed how good he is and how well he can lead Arsenal in the future. So what does this mean for their upcoming games? We all know Crystal Palace are a fantastic side, and we all know Crystal Palace will do some damage coming into this season. They obviously host Leicester next game, who fell to Brentford, who I think came from behind against them. So they drew against Brentford at home. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not Arsenal can continue this form, and it'll be interesting to see if that slightly more controlled way that Brendan Rodgers wants his side to play, and slightly more kind of, maybe not possession-based football, but that goal-scoring aspect, whether that can put a dent in Arsenal's armour. Obviously, Leicester went with the 3-at-the-back formation as well against Brentford. It'll be just interesting to see how Arteta can adapt when versing a 5-man defence. But I think that's all on Arsenal. They were exceptional. In the opening game, they really made up for last season's debacle and were controlled. Were really controlled against Crystal Palace. Granted, Palace did have some chances. Odsonne Edouard probably should have scored that header, and Eberechi Eze probably should have scored that 1-on-1, but they didn't. Arsenal took their chances, or Arsenal took its chances, and that's all she wrote, really. 2-0, top of the league. I'm not sure they aren't top of the league as it stands, but they were for a while, which would be pleasing to see for all Arsenal supporters. But that was a good game to start the Premier League season. I lived up to a lot. The Palace fans were in full voice as always, and what we were expecting to see from another team in the league, we didn't get to see. Now, Arsenal were kind of a little bit of a dark horse. No one really knew what to expect, and another dark horse, or another kind of unorthodox team, was Manchester United. Now,